They didn't consult me, they just made the decision. As usual, I was supposed to agree, grin, and figure out how to make it happen. My name is Rachel Connors. I'm 28, a senior accountant at a company most people outside finance wouldn't recognize. I lead a calm life in a peaceful building, free of chaos or destruction. Everything I have, my degree, my career, my credit score, even my kitchen table, I've earned through hard work. No favors, no shortcuts. But if you ask my family, they'd likely call me distant. Not because I've ever raised my voice, stormed out, or been unkind, but because I stopped fixing their problems. I have an older sister, Erin, 2 years my senior but always lagging behind. Erin has a knack for turning setbacks into dramas and blaming everyone else. Lost another job? The manager was awful. Evicted from another apartment? The roommates were envious. Missed a bill. She's doing her best. My parents, Carol and Frank, never challenge her. They adapt, rearrange, and when they can't solve it themselves, they turn to me. You're steady, Rachel. You're fortunate. You can assist. That phrase haunted me for years. Help with car payments, rent. Bail always help. The few times I refused, they acted like I was the one causing a rift. I learned early that my worth wasn't in being cherished. It was in being dependable. But even dependability has its limits, and they were about to discover mine. Sunday dinners at our house had a familiar pattern. The same dish, the same table, the same subtle tension masked as courtesy. That night, something felt staged. Mom greeted me at the door with an overly warm smile. You look so slim, dear. Are you eating enough? Dad barely spoke, just a nod and a distracted, Hi, kid. Erin was already seated, glued to her phone, avoiding my gaze like a kid caught misbehaving. I knew the signs. When Mom was overly sweet and Dad went quiet, it meant they were about to drop something they knew I'd dislike. We got through the salad. Mom praised the weather like it deserved a medal. Dad kept topping off his glass, and Erin poked at her food like it might attack her. Then Mom set her fork down, clasped her hands, and flashed that rehearsed smile she used for requests laced with guilt. Rachel, she said, too gently, we've been discussing. Erin's been struggling lately, and, well, she'll be staying with you for a bit. Just like that, no question, no debate. She said it like she was offering me a treat, assuming I'd agree. The room seemed to freeze, as if they were waiting for me to object, ready to label my resistance as selfish. I looked at Erin. She glanced up briefly, then away. Dad cleared his throat, bracing for a fight. Instead, I smiled. Sure, I said casually. If it helps Erin get back on track, why not? The silence that followed was tense. Mom blinked, surprised. Dad let out a breath, like he'd escaped trouble. Erin leaned back, a smug look spreading across her face. None of them noticed how still I became, how quiet. They thought I'd given in. What they didn't know, what they never thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks, and I had no intention of letting Erin or anyone else move into a place that no longer existed. I didn't decide to deceive my family overnight. It took years, years of silent letdowns, guilt-driven favors, and sacrifices they forgot. I realized that in my family, survival came with expectations, and being the strong one just meant being the most convenient to rely on. When I was 21, Erin's car was repossessed. She called, crying, saying she couldn't get to her new job, that this one was different, that she just needed a little support. My credit was spotless, so co-signing seemed minor. She quit that job 3 weeks later and missed the payments. Guess whose credit suffered? At 23, Mom called, sobbing because the mortgage was overdue. Dad had lost his job, and Erin had moved back home. I sent $2,000 the next morning. No one said thank you. At Christmas, Mom gave me a mug that read, World's Best Daughter, and I nearly laughed. At 25, Erin got a DUI, at least the first one we knew about. Dad asked me to keep it quiet, saying it would ruin the family's reputation. I paid for the lawyer. Erin never mentioned it. A year later, when she got pulled over again and I refused to help, Mom called me heartless. You've never understood what it's like to care for someone you love, she said. Erin's life is tougher than yours. That was when I knew, not suspected, knew they didn't see me. They saw a tool, a resource they could tap when something broke, a wallet that smiled. I started pulling away, politely declining, redirecting conversations, saying, "I'll consider it" instead of "yes." They noticed, and they didn't like it. One night, alone in my condo, the one I'd bought without help, furnished with clearance finds, paid for with careful budgeting, I stared at the front door and realized it didn't feel safe. It wasn't truly mine. When they needed something, it was ours. My time, my money, my patience. So I made a choice. I contacted a realtor, sold the condo quietly, legally, without fuss. I moved to a small rental across town. No one asked where I lived, and I didn't volunteer the information. I could have told them, but I didn't, not out of spite, not for revenge, but for self-preservation. Sometimes, when your family only values your utility, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is step back, just enough to breathe. The texts began Monday. "We'll bring Erin's mattress Saturday morning. Frank's packing boxes Friday night. She's thrilled to finally have her own place." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They were talking to a version of me that no longer existed, assuming I'd open the door, adjust my life, and carry the burden silently as I always had. By Thursday, Mom was texting daily. "Let me know if you need anything cleaned before she moves in. Erin says she won't be a hassle. She's bringing her own plates." That one made me chuckle quietly over my coffee. She hadn't cleaned a dish in her own place in years. But I let it unfold. I didn't argue or correct them. I waited. Saturday morning, I left early, coffee, then a drive across town with no destination. I wandered through a farmer's market, not buying anything, just lingering in the sun longer than needed. My phone buzzed 3 times before I checked it. Missed calls, voicemails. I let the 4th call through. "Rachel!" It was Mom, but not her gentle tone, the sharp, panicked one. "What's happening?" "There's a man here. He says he lives in the condo, says you don't live there anymore." I let the silence linger, wanting her to feel the uncertainty, the unfamiliarity. "You didn't tell us," she snapped. "You never said a word." "No," I replied calmly. "I didn't." There was rustling in the background, bags shifting, Dad's voice low and tense, Erin muttering something unclear. "Rachel," Mom hissed, "what is this?" "I sold the condo," I said simply. "Weeks ago." "You what?" "I moved out quietly. I didn't think it mattered. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say." For a moment, silence. I pictured them on the porch, bags at their feet, arms crossed, realizing they'd planned an ambush and arrived at the wrong fortress. Then Dad's voice cut in. "You lied to us. You said she could move in." I said, "If it helps Erin, I don't see why not." I didn't say where. Another pause, a sharp breath from Mom, and from Erin, "Finally." "So what? We're just supposed to figure it out now." She sounded young, not angry, just adrift. For a fleeting moment, I almost responded. But I didn't. Because here's what they didn't know. I hadn't changed the locks out of malice or sold the condo to prove a point. I did it because I was exhausted from living in a space that never felt like mine. I did it because I deserved a home where I didn't brace for demands. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for people who won't change is to stop making room for them. They thought that was the end. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my door. I knew they'd come, even as I sipped my coffee that morning, even as I ignored their voicemails. Mom wouldn't let it go. She'd dig, call someone, or show up to prove I was still within reach, still obligated. At sunset, the knock came. 3 sharp raps, polite but barely containing frustration. I checked the peephole. Carol, Frank, Erin, and a trunk full of boxes on the curb, like it was moving day. I opened the door halfway. "You found me," I said evenly. Mom looked flustered, her lipstick smudged, hair tousled from running her hands through it. "We tried calling," she said, voice tight. "We didn't think you'd actually be here." "It's my apartment," I said. "But you said," Dad's voice rose, "you said she could move in. Now we're here with all her stuff, and you're acting like we're strangers." I didn't budge or raise my voice. "I never said she could move in here." I said, "If it helps Erin, I don't see why not." "That was at the old place, which, as you know, I don't live in anymore." Erin stepped forward, arms crossed, cheeks flushed with anger, not shame. "This is low, Rachel. You always act like you're better than everyone, but this is cruel." I tilted my head. You packed up your life and drove across town to move into an apartment you didn't even confirm I still had. That's not cruelty, that's assumption. Erin's voice broke. You're my sister. Yes, I said coolly, and you've spent years mistaking that for free rent. Dad stepped in, his tone sharp with warning. Enough, Rachel. We're not leaving. You owe this to your sister. There it was, the word always left unsaid. Oh, as if every dollar I'd paid, every hour I'd worked, every sleepless night fixing problems I didn't create was part of some unwritten debt I never agreed to. I stepped back, picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, eyes narrowing. I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings, then. 911, what's your emergency? My voice stayed steady. I have family members outside my apartment who won't leave. They're not on the lease and weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Erin's jaw dropped. Frank cursed under his breath. Mom looked like I'd struck her. Rachel, she whispered, almost begging, you're calling the police on your own family? I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Erin's voice trembled with fury. This will ruin everything. Do you know what people will think of you? Yes, I said. They'll say I finally stopped opening my door. Mom blinked, her voice softening to something fragile. You used to be compassionate. I didn't waver. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with every ignored boundary, every unspoken word, every time I'd said yes when I wanted to scream no. A patrol car arrived 10 minutes later. The officer stepped out, tall and calm, her hand near her belt but relaxed. Evening, she said. We got a call about trespassing. I nodded. That's me. She glanced at my parents, at Erin, at the car with bags still in the trunk. Ma'am, sir, I need you to leave the premises. This is our daughter, Frank said. This is a family matter. And this is her residence, the officer replied, which you're not allowed to occupy without permission. Erin looked ready to cry, or lash out, maybe both. You'll regret this, Rachel. No, I said. I've regretted almost everything until now. This is the first thing I'm certain of. The next day, I woke to 12 missed calls, 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest from unfamiliar numbers, probably cousins or family friends I hadn't spoken to since graduation. Then the texts. Why would you do this to your sister? Your mom is heartbroken. Erin's sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't respond. I just scrolled. Then I found it. A public Facebook post from Mom. 3 paragraphs with heartbreak emojis and a photo of Erin as a toddler. We raised both our daughters to support each other, but one has forgotten what that means. We're devastated that Rachel, so accomplished, so blessed, would turn her back when we needed her. Erin didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since I was 12, calling me selfish, cold, privileged. It wasn't new, just louder. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time, I responded. A simple thread, no drama, no hashtags. I posted a screenshot of a $2,000 transfer for the mortgage, my name on Erin's car loan followed by the collections notice, the lawyer's invoice from her DUI, a timeline of every one-time favor I'd done since I was 21, the receipt of the condo sale, and a message Erin sent 2 years ago calling me a dull robot for not letting her stay for a month. I ended with one sentence. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped paying for their emotional debts. I turned off my phone, not out of fear, but because I didn't need validation. I needed silence, and for once I had it. That night, the apartment was calm. No noise from the hallway, no buzzing phone, just the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old pipes. I made chamomile tea, not to sleep. I didn't need help sleeping anymore, but for the ritual, a warm cup in my hands, steam rising like absolution I hadn't sought. My phone lit up once. Mom. Then again, Erin. I didn't read the messages. I knew the pattern. Shock, anger, guilt, pleading, always in that order. I blocked both numbers, not out of malice or pride, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. I stepped onto the balcony. The air was cool, not biting, the kind that reminds you you're alive. Below, the city moved, people walking, headlights glowing, someone with a dog and an oversized coat too warm for spring. A neighbor 2 floors down waved. I waved back. It was small, that gesture, but more genuine than most things I'd done out of duty. Inside, I turned off the lights one by one. Living room, kitchen, hallway. No family photos on the walls, just quiet, clean space. I didn't feel victorious, bitter, or broken. I felt finished performing, explaining, being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned to breathe on their own. Somewhere out there, they're probably rewriting the story, casting me as the villain, the cold one, the ungrateful daughter. Let them. I didn't come here to be adored. I came to stop pretending. I didn't disappear, they just told the story like I had. And now I've written it.